This is your world. A world where physics has been weaponized. What makes you laugh or makes you cry is monetized. What you search for is ring-fenced. We are being watched. Our every movement is logged. Our political ideas are controlled. A world where eyes in the sky are looking down on us. Hey everybody, welcome back. Look who we've got. We've got Josh again. First of all, a big thank you for watching Josh and I talking on the first video about these aerogel drones. Over 23,000 people have been interested in it because it's a great subject. But I have to make this really clear. Neither Josh or myself have any clearances. We're not busting anything. We are researchers. We squirrel away looking for clues. Whether we get the clues right, what we're saying, I don't know. But I think we're going in the right direction with answering the mechanics, the physics of what's going on. We're not trying to undermine national security. We're trying to understand. Well, I have a quest. Ever since the Manhattan Project, physics has gone dark, and we need to understand how physics is being weaponized. And also, I'd like to say, with these amazing drones that do exist, they could be a power for good. I've been thinking of all these. Imagine having a network of drones over a disaster relief area. You could actually look down, see where a flood is, see where an earthquake is, see where refugees are. But they seem to be in the control of people who have satellites and ground stations. And of course, initially, they're going to be weaponized. But the technology is fascinating. Josh knows how it works. So today, to start with, and this is going to be two parts. To start with, I'm going to read to Josh some of your very erudite, smart questions, and we'll see how he answers them with his breadth of knowledge into how this technology works. And then we're going to discuss a crashed aerogel metamaterial that has been crash recovered and is in the possession of the United States. But let's start with your questions. And thank you very much for asking such smart questions. So here's a good one. This is from Navy Gunner Josh. The Tic Tac, if it was just a balloon, it would still have to deal with the aerodynamic forces when moving through the atmosphere. You know, if it went up extremely fast, it would have friction and it might even have a sonic boom. How do you think these aerogel balloons, what makes them different from anything else in our atmosphere?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me on again, Simon. I really appreciate that you're taking an interest and your community is taking an interest in this subject. I tried to answer a lot of the questions that your viewers had on the previous video in the comments section.
In the comments,
so
right.
I hope I got most of your questions answered, and I look forward to answering some more today. Regarding the question from your viewer, aerogel is extremely heat resistant. If it experiences friction in the atmosphere, it is the best material we know of to experience that friction. Aerogels can resist heat up to 1200 degrees Celsius. They're currently used as the heat shield of the space shuttle that we don't really use anymore, but it was using aerogel tiles on the bottom side of it so that when it glided back into the atmosphere, the aerogel tiles would absorb that heat and friction. Regarding the sonic boom that you mentioned as well, if the craft is going up in the atmosphere, the sonic boom is also going up in the atmosphere. It's following the direction of the craft, and it dissipates out into space. Doesn't get heard by us down in the ground.
sonic boom is like a pyramid of, it's a pressure wave. It's a compressibility. That's what it was called long before it was called breaking the sound barrier. It was about the compressibility of a craft moving through our air, our atmosphere. And the other thing about sonic booms or compressibility is it alters with height. So as you can break the sound barrier very slow at sea level, but as you rise up and start getting above normal flight levels, the speed of sound amazingly changes. And as you say, that cone of compressibility that we hear when it goes over the Earth isn't going over the Earth. So yeah, no, excellent, good. My minor aerodynamic knowledge agrees with you, Josh. Thank you very much. All right, good one. Thank you, Navy Gunner.
Please keep the questions coming to viewers. An important aspect of science and democracy is open discussion. We need to have this talk. This cannot be held in silence anymore. It is physics and materials science. This is not nuclear secrets.
No, that's the whole point of my very humble YouTube channel. If I really would want to rename it, I would actually call it Social Media Science. But because you, the viewers, know more than I do, Josh knows more than I do, and by sharing our knowledge, you spent your entire career, whatever you've done, studying and know stuff. Look at how bad the media are at covering science. And you go, hang on a minute, I've worked 50 years in an industry making specialized steel. I know how it works. Well, share your knowledge, because the truth is out there. Isn't a reference to the X-Files. It's a reference to you knowing the truth because it's out there. So Josh, you're absolutely right. Share what you know and build a bigger picture for all of us.
I will counter one aspect of that.
Yeah.
Not all of the media is doing a poor job. There are citizen journalists that are picking up this information and asking questions of those in power. They are still getting rebuffed with lies. The DOE responded that these items are nuclear secrets. They're not. They do not emit radiation. They do not emit energy on their own. The DOE is still lying to Congress and to journalists who are asking these questions now.
I'm totally behind citizen journalism. I was talking more about mainstream broadcasters. I mean,
the mainstream is
right.
They're not even looking. They've got their eyes closed.
No, and they're being manipulated. The whole flying saucer UFO story is a dream for anybody to just feed into mainstream media for advertising revenue without asking serious questions. But our viewers ask serious questions. Here's a good one. This is from 24 Starbuck. Can this information be shared with the likes of Louis Elizondo et al? I like the et al because there's a kind of an inner circle with Louis. I would like to hear what Louis and others in that inner circle of UAP research would think about this. Have you? I've not heard directly from any of the kind of A-list UFO people. Have you? Do you think they actually want to know this information, that it's man-made?
I can't speculate as to what their methods are for why they're doing what they're doing. I do encourage this information to be shared, though. Everything that we've found is public record. It's all on open internet sites, and just found it through research and put the puzzle back together. It needs to be discussed. Share it as widely as you can. All of this information is free.
I completely agree. I mean, I've said this so many times in the comments. People go, yeah, but what about all those flying saucers? Well, hang on. The aerogel drones aren't flying saucers. They shouldn't even be unidentified. That's our job. They need to be identified flying objects. They need to be out there. They're not aliens. They're not UFOs. And every case has to be treated separately. We're specifically talking about the weaponization of a new technology, which is fascinating material science and physics. And let's not get confused. Just because some people think the Navy Nimitz video releases were related to UAP, hence they must be alien. No, they're not. Most things that was released, most things that people see are human. That's not to say that there aren't highly strange things out there. The highly strange is stranger than you could possibly imagine. I've often said this, if aliens ever did come to visit, if we have evidence of interdimensional visitors or frequencies or material science, we will know it. You will immediately, it will have the signatures of non-terrestrial, extraterrestrial, interstellar. Those things are really clearly defined. And one of the things that we'll talk about later is, how do you know when you find a lump of stuff, in your garden? Is it from your garden or is it from the planet Zog? Well, there's really interesting technology to actually discover what it is. Yeah. Oh, this is great. Okay, I think we'll have to go for the cat point question. So, David Fravor, after he had his encounter with the Tic Tac, and maybe we should go over exactly, just precisely, his timeline. But after his encounter, when the thing had disappeared, the drone, he was alerted by the Princeton, who said clearly, you won't believe this, but it has turned up at your cat point. Do you want to unpick that, the encounter, the last bit of it, and then come up with why you think a drone, the Tic Tac, appeared, I don't know what it was, 50, 100 nautical miles away at the CAP point, which is a muster point before returning to the aircraft carrier. Why do you think the Tic Tac appeared at the CAP point?
Because it wasn't the Tic Tac. If you follow the case correctly,
right,
the radar operators on the Princeton noted that for days, multiple objects were showing up on their radar, ascending and descending from 80,000 feet in the air column. There's two of those going up and down to show up on radar to see if the radar operators on the Nimitz can see these things. That was a part of the test too. They bounce them up and down in the atmosphere by changing the air pressure inside their vacuum chamber. The radar operators see them. They then task Fravor to go out there. Note, he didn't have any weapons on his ship. This is a test. They are making sure that if Fravor sees one of these things, he doesn't have any weapons so that he can fire off a missile at it.
Right.
Because he wants to shoot the aliens. He had no weapons on board.
No.
Dietrich had no weapons on board. They saw these things. When Fravor goes down towards it, they realize, because he's communicating back to the Nimitz, that he's asked for tasking to intercept these things.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, they realize this part of the test has failed too. The radar operators saw it. Fravor saw it. It can be seen by both things. That's a failed test. The Tic Tacs are not stealthy enough. At that point, they want to get their prototype out of there. So they vent everything that's in the inside pressure chamber, because it's down at air level. It has enough pressure in it to be, it's down at ocean level. It has enough pressure in it to be equalized with the pressure at ocean level. When they vent the atmosphere that is inside the Tic Tac, that venting of the atmosphere causes the craft to start moving horizontally. In addition, the pressure equalization, since it's now got a vacuum inside of it, that needs to equalize, so it starts going up. Up and sideways leads to the Tic Tac also curving. That's what Fravor describes.
Right.
The Tic Tac that he encountered goes up in the atmosphere so fast that he and Dietrich just think that it's disappeared when really it's just gone straight up to equalize its pressure. And
Right.
another different Tic Tac, they had multiple in the area, comes down at the cap point.
Perfect. And of course, these are the whole point of these devices. They are network mesh systems that interact and communicate up to satellites. You would have almost no purpose in having one. You are always going to want to know how they are working together as a team, as a mesh. So that makes perfect sense. Now I'm going to tell viewers a story. So one of the things that I like to do with many of my films is to ask the big question. Look at the big picture. And one of the big picture items on the whole Tic Tac story is, where was it seen? Oh, it was seen. Excuse me, I don't know the actual number of this area, but it's in a MOA, a military operation area. It's a restricted area where live fire exercises can take place. Let's just call it R123. I don't know its actual. It'll have 3 or 4 numbers after the word letter R. And wait for this, anybody can use them. They're not the navies, they're not the Air Force, they're not the Army, and they're not only defense contractors, they are an area that is clear of civil airspace, and they have a controlling authority. And the only requirement is whoever enters it and uses it, playground, is you are in audio communication, two-way audio communication with the controlling authority. There is no reason why, if it was a US test vehicle, why whoever built it and wanted to test it out there, because it makes sense, couldn't be doing it at the same time that the Navy exercise, which was planned, which was going to be a live fire exercise, was going to take place in the same R123. The only thing that is required is that the Navy live fire exercise can't take place if there's another craft that isn't in communication with the controlling authority, and that frequency is published. As a pilot, I know this. And of course, the drones weren't talking to anybody. That was really the reason that the Nimitz, after seeing these uncommunicative things in the restricted area, needed to go and intercept them, because you couldn't actually have their Navy exercise take place until it was positively identified. You know, it might be a 737, it might be a Cessna, it could have been anything. They definitely saw them. And for me, this is slightly weird, but I've had the situation over a restricted area that I flew in my light aircraft, where I've had drone operations simultaneously with Air National Guard F-16 operations. And I was, of course, the third operation transiting the area, and I was given permission. And I said, so there's 2 things going on? They said, oh, they're just talking to us. There's no necessity that it was a Navy closed airspace. That's what I'm saying. It's quite possible that a defense contractor or another government department, DOE, Los Alamos, whoever it was who's built these things, could be in the same restricted area. So that's just a bit of information that hopefully clears up why it's possible that this could all be just happen. You know, I think it's a bit of a fuck up, really. I think you really need to all communicate. You think the Navy would know, but they don't need to know. Anyway.
I will point out that 2 people involved did know what was going on.
Oh, who's that?
The 2 people that arrived in a helicopter in black suits to retrieve both the radar and all of the footage from the craft. They were DOE employees. They had access by their nature of their work to go and do that test. They knew what was going on the whole time. They monitored it. They showed up afterwards in a helicopter to retrieve the evidence of the test.
And remember, it's only a few miles, really. It's a short hop, skip, and a jump by a helicopter back to California. It's not in the middle of the Pacific. I mean, yeah. Oh, so you're saying that the DOE or whoever the builders of and testing these drones actually knew that the Nimitz exercise was going ahead and purposely wanted to know how the U.S. Navy would interact with their devices.
They even chose the pilot. They knew it was the Nimitz. They knew it was Fravor. They set it up that way. It was a test by the DOE of their new prototype, which was the Tic Tac.
Fantastic. How big is the Tic Tac?
It's about 44 feet long,
Massive.
about the size of one of those big gas station propane tanks that you fill up your little barbecue tank from. It's about the same size, and I think that the Tic Tacs were actually created in one of those. You put the precursor of the aerogel in the big tank, and you create a hollowed out version inside of the big tank. That's how you make the craft.
Well, that leads on to another question. A lot of people have been asking, if it was a lighter than air balloon, how could you have all this technology inside it? Wouldn't that make it very heavy? Of course, it changes a lot. If it's 40 damn feet long, and maybe I'll come back after your answer. So cameras weigh nothing. Have you ever taken the camera out of an iPhone? It's the size of a chip, and they're incredibly high quality. So would you agree that a lot of the stuff inside these drones doesn't have to be heavy?
It doesn't have to be heavy, and they've specifically engineered these to carry the lightest weight components. They use aerogel pumps. They don't use big, heavy pumps that you have in your backyard for pumping your pool out. They use a cylinder that contains thin film aerogel that is wrapped around itself and shoved into a cylinder that is then heated or cooled, and it works as the most efficient type of pump that humans know of.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It is lightweight. The cameras are lightweight.
Yeah.
The aerogel craft itself, in China's case, can be used to store charge. They have a lightweight aerogel that China has discovered that holds charge in it and acts as a conductor for that charge. You use the craft itself as the battery.
Oh, I think we're going to go on to that when we discuss Garry Nolan's crash recovery material, because I think one of the evidence of the stuff that he found in Brazil was possibly it was something to do with energy storage. I mean, in my humble opinion, I'm going to go back to my Dorling Kindersley or my British Ladybird book of buoyancy. So something that is 40 foot long, that is evacuated as a vacuum, it's lighter than air, is going to be incredibly buoyant. Josh has already explained how it dissipates heat, so it can travel up through the atmosphere. We've also talked about sonic booms not being a problem because the cone of pressure is going in the wrong way. And I added that it changes the sonic speed, just the compressibility of air changes at altitude. But I think a lot of people maybe have missed slightly what buoyancy is. So buoyancy is this. Buoyancy is the same in water. You're being held up by the pressure of the air or the liquid beneath you. And the way that you're being held up is just like a boat. It's about displacement. So a 40-foot cylinder is going to displace, as much air. Remember in World War II, they made concrete boats. You go, well, how's that going to work? Well, you can make 1,000 million ton super tankers out of steel, because they are displacing the water or the air to actually become buoyant. And it's the air underneath it that's holding it up. As you're compressing it, the air underneath is getting denser and then holding you up. And all you have to be is neutral and light, and then you will become buoyant. I hope that clears up buoyancy, because
you can put a steel tube in water, and it's a submarine. We do this all the time.
It's a submarine, yeah, and it doesn't sink to the bottom. No, and it's not. Also, what I'm saying, it's not because it's full of air. I mean, it's also because of its shape.
A funny thing that was pointed out to us is the movie Hunt for Red October describes a submarine that uses this propulsion method. It pulls in water and it shoots it out the back for a silent submarine drive.
Oh, that's right. It had special pumps, didn't it? Right. Whoa.
They called it electrohydrodynamic in the book.
Mm-hmm.
That's much too complex of a name. It is just pumping.
Just pumping. Fascinating technology. Let's see if there's time for another question. Very cool. Thank you, Jeff. But if they're an aerogel, then what's their propulsion system, and what's it got to do with the absorption of light? I think he knows a bit more than he's letting on. That opens a bit of a can of worms. Do you think the actual material is and its interaction with light photons can actually form some kind of propulsion system? That sounds pretty sophisticated.
Yeah, we actually have proof of that already. Aerogels respond to light, heat, and both can cause them to lift. Pressure change, as we described in the spherical vessels and the Tic Tac, also causes aerogel to lift. I've included a video for your viewers where you can see a piece of aerogel composite sitting under a glass. It has some light focused on it, and it starts to rise up in the cup, just reacting to the light. I also included a longer video where you can see a puck of aerogel actually gets heated up by a lamp, and it is responding both to the light and the increased heat in the object in that one that is building up. As you can see it fluttering around in the air at quite drastic relative speeds, that is in reaction to the light and the heat of the on the material.
So are you saying that the external structure of aerogel is fine enough not only to be non-porous to the atomic molecular level of or the atomic level of our atmosphere, it won't let air in or out, but are you implying that its structure could be a metamaterial which could redirect microwave energy or even photons? That would be interesting.
Correct. Photons themselves, like air, get trapped by the fine porous material. So when a photon hits the aerogel, it actually goes in a little bit, gets trapped in one of those interior bubbles, and starts to bounce around. That in and of itself causes lift.
By a Newtonian reaction to this bouncing around energy.
The energy of the photon bouncing around and becoming trapped in there causes net lift on the material itself. It also heats up the material, which changes its density, and that causes lift too. You'll notice that all of the craft themselves are coated in a stealth material, a black phosphorus that makes them indistinct. One of the reasons for that is not just for stealth. The craft need to be covered in this material. Otherwise, when they get hit with sunlight, their density changes and they have to react to all of that. They focus the change to just being the interior vacuum chamber density and the propulsion that can be used by pumping that. Because if they were relying on sun hitting it, sometimes they're on the other side of the world and it's dark. You can't rely on sunlight always for the craft, but there are methods of generating energy out of sunlight using only aerogel. No fuel required anymore.
Well, that sounds a bit like a segue. So Garry Nolan probably, and correct me if I've got this wrong, was given a piece of what is claimed to be crash recovered material. It's very interesting, and he has access to very high end ways of atomically looking at the structure of what material is made out of, and he's publicly shown this layered material, which is mainly made up, correct me if I'm right, bismuth and what's the other metal?
Magnesium.
And magnesium, right? And it looks like it's in thin layers. And he says, Garry, excuse me if I'm getting you wrong, that it's not a material which is commonly manufactured. So it could be extraterrestrial. Wow, that's a big push. One of the things that I said right at the beginning was that's really simple to sort out, because everything on planet Earth has a known isotope number. Anything outside of that isotope number doesn't come from Earth. So is it from Earth or not? You can immediately tell. The way that it's layered seemed immensely reminiscent of maybe a skin of one of these drone type devices. What do you know? Tell me the story of what you think the crash recovered material is that Garry Nolan has found with the magnesium that he's showing everybody.
So my first statement will be that I very much appreciate Garry Nolan,
Right.
Professor Garry Nolan, and all of his contributions to science. I myself have cancer. I appreciate the work of every cancer doctor in the world.
Right.
I'm reaching out to Professor Nolan because I'm not sure that he has seen the breakthrough science that has been done in China. There is a research paper that I've sent to Professor Simon that describes the exact material that To the Stars Academy and Professor Garry Nolan have in their possession, and it can be analyzed by a spectroscope. This is something that they have in their lab. You can compare that analysis to this Chinese paper that I've provided to Professor Simon and see that the material science from this is not out of this world. It is, in fact, the material that is used for Chinese aerogel vacuum lighter than air drones, and it was recovered from Brazil. Why was there a Chinese lighter than air drone above Brazil to crash in the first place? Why was Ross Coulthart told by the DoD that no foreign adversaries have this technology when we can clearly see from research papers and patents that they have the technology and they're building drones out of it, just like the DOE is?
So it seems very compacted. It doesn't seem like it's an aerogel material. Why do you think the sample that he has looks like a squished layer cake?
I think that it got damaged slightly when it crashed into Brazil, whether through fire or impact. It degraded the internal structure of that aerogel sample, but you can still see the fine micron width layering of bismuth and magnesium that is specifically described by the Chinese research paper that I've provided.
Can you go into just layman's terms why bismuth and magnesium would be advantageous as a material?
It acts as both a lightweight material that is vacuum proof, so you can make a bubble or a shell for a drone that is lighter than air out of it. And it also, in the case of bismuth and magnesium, acts as a battery. It stores charge.
Right. So you think by being in the air, by the friction and the potential of being away from our ground or our Earth, it's possible to harvest power purely from material science of these devices.
It's a lot simpler than that. You simply have to have a little part of the exterior of the vessel not covered in the stealth coating, the photon absorbent coating.
Right.
That part will be exposed to sunlight and will continue to charge the material that is inside the aerogel shell is a battery.
Okay, so right, so the power is coming from
the sun.
From the sun. Oh, fantastic! And so the whole of the drone is effectively a hollow battery, and this can be used.
In the case of the CCP ones,
Uh-huh.
the US does not use this technology currently. This is only used in the CCP reverse engineered, reproduced aerogel lighter than air drones. Dr. Garry Nolan, you have proof that the CCP has a fleet of lighter than air drones. Please do spectroscopy on it and show the results to the world.
And there should be evidence in the sample that it was a compressed aerogel. Or
the sample should also show that the magnesium and bismuth were from Earth, not from outer space.
Well, it's so unlikely that it was from outer space. But yeah, that's just like simple, in my humble opinion. But I'd like to know whether, if you look closely at the compressed layers, if you can see evidence that it was either a skin or there's any evidence of aerogel. I'm slightly confused. Are we saying that bismuth and aluminium and magnesium were inflated into a magnetic aerogel, or is it a coating around an aerogel sphere?
The bismuth and magnesium are the aerogel.
Yeah.
They are components that are subjected to a process wherein the bismuth and aluminum are laid down in fine layers that are then filled with porous spaces in a process that generates aerogels. If you go to our master research document, down near the bottom, we show links that tell you how to produce these materials. I'm also including the actual Chinese research paper for this production of this material for Simon to share with you, so that you guys can all dig into it and understand that this is not a technology that is specific to the DOE.
No.
The CCP has these too. This is not alien. It has been reverse engineered from unknown places. Maybe an alien crash recovered by the CIA, maybe something else, but both the CCP and the DOE have reverse engineered that technology and are producing lighter than air drones based off of it.
So there should definitely be evidence, however mangled it is, of a foamy or a cellular structure left partially in this layer cake material. And that's what I would be looking for, not only what it's made up of, but how it's layered. So Dr. Nolan, we're all ears to know what if you think this could be a Chinese aerogel material. The Chinese balloons over Canada and the United States and elsewhere in the world probably, could the missing ones that were shot down, could the other ones that we never saw, we only ever saw the non-aerogel possibly controlling balloon, but the other ones we've never saw, they just disappeared. Supposedly some of them were shot down over Canada and over Alaska area. Could those have been aerogel balloons?
Yeah, I know that 3 of the 9 were definitely shot down or shot at. One was shot down over northern British Columbia.
Yeah.
That is a lot of forest, and I believe them when they say that they probably aren't going to be able to recover that one. It would be a massive area to search, and these aren't magnetic. It's aerogel. When it gets hit with a missile, it either, if the missile is hot enough, burns up, or gets shattered into a million pieces that fall to the ground. They're not magnetic. So if you go out there with metal detectors, you're never going to find this thing.
No.
The other one got shot down over Prudhoe Bay, which is north of Alaska. That's over sea ice. Again, it would be shattered into non-magnetic pieces. You're gonna have hard time finding that. The third one that got shot down was over one of the Great Lakes.
Yeah,
goes into the water, and you're never gonna find that one either. After that point, the curious thing is that the US forces started filtering these results out.
Right.
Now, if these are CCP drones that are making incursions into Brazil, into India, into Peru, into Canada, these need to be shot down. Why are we allowing the CCP to fly drones over sovereign territory?
Right. They obviously saw a weakness in our air defense. NORAD and those kind of systems were so designed for the Cold War, looking for incoming ballistic missiles. Anything floating in the airstream, a small balloon, they're not going to see. I mean, they purposely filtered them out. Now I'm sure they've turned that filter off, but wasn't that a clever thing? And even today, like the Mosul balloon, you could say it's a kid's balloon. It's just a balloon. Well, it's not necessarily just a balloon, and they're difficult to see, and they're slow moving, and they're not what you expect. I think there's always a thing that when you look for something that you are on the horizon, you're looking for a ship, and you see this weird thing, the human brain tends to ignore it and go, I don't know what that is. And it was a ship, but you didn't see it. And I think these balloons function slightly at that level because they are counterintuitive, pretty simple, but they work. I think they're just interesting and fascinating to understand the material science and the physics involved. I really thank you, Josh, for this. I mean, I think that there's more to this story than meets the eye. We are digging into what we can squirrel down a rabbit hole to discover. But there's, obviously, you and I didn't drive up to Los Alamos and say, "Oh, could you show us your balloons, your drones?" Because they wouldn't. So, but there's stuff out there, the Chinese material, I will pass on. It's in the description of this video. Other material that Josh has, he's more than willing to share it. And we want your input. Do you work in this field? Do you produce aerogels? Do you think the aerogels would work in this application? Please share your knowledge with us, because we need you as citizen journalists, as viewers, to actually share this information. To close tonight, Josh has a sample of something very interesting. What did you get in the mail today, Josh?
I got my first chunk of airloy to do experiments on in the mail. And let me show you this. I've heard a lot of people claiming aerogels are brittle. I agree. Original aerogel was brittle. I cannot bend this with putting as much force as my hands can exert on it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Can you tell us where you got it from?
It weighs nothing.
Yeah.
Buyaerogel.com was willing to sell me some. I don't think they're willing to sell me it anymore.
You're not on their Christmas card list. Okay. All right.
I think I'm on a lot of lists now, Simon.
Well, yeah, I don't get many Christmas cards. It's a shame. Thank you very much, Josh. This was not only fascinating for you to so clearly answer a very few number of me reading out viewers' questions, but in the first film, Josh has gone through diligently and tried to answer as many questions. So if you've asked, it'll never work, or whatever question you had, there underneath is Josh's answer from Josh. Probably not for me. I'm going, ask Josh. And tonight we've gone through a few of the ones that I wanted him to actually address in person. And then Josh has really dropped a bombshell and explained an idea, because that's what we do, about what possibly the aerogel, what possibly the crash recovered material that Dr. Garry Nolan was given that came from Brazil. Fascinating talk. Thank you very much. And this subject will continue. Stay tuned. If this is the kind of film that you enjoy watching, if you like having fantastic guests, let me know. Subscribe for more, and see you around. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Josh.
you, viewers. Yeah. Thank you, Simon. Please share this information. Please question this information. Ask questions. I will try to respond to them. If I miss them, ask them again.
Thank you very much, Josh. It's been really great to talk to you, and you've really, your knowledge and your group's knowledge that I have to acknowledge, looking into this.
I couldn't have done this without my group.
Right.
Amazing people are part of Korea UFO, and they are taking risks too. And
right,
I appreciate them, and I hope you do too.
Sure, be respectful to Josh and his group, and I guess to me, and realize that we are sharing what we know and what we can share with you, because the truth is out there.